Tehran, 1986. A Mossad agent sits in a dimly lit cafe, his hands wrapped around a glass of tea. He's been living as Ahmad, a Syrian businessman, for 3 years. Every morning, he wakes up as Ahmad. Every night, he goes to sleep as Ahmad. His real name, his real life, buried so deep, he sometimes forgets it himself. Across the table, an Iranian intelligence officer leans forward. The man's eyes are cold, calculating. He slides a photograph across the table, a photo of the agent's sister, taken just last week in Tel Aviv. The officer knows, or maybe he's testing, maybe he's fishing for a reaction, any reaction. The slightest flicker of recognition, the agent's heart pounds. His sister's face stares back at him from the photograph. He hasn't seen her in years. The officer watches, waiting for the mask to slip, waiting for a crack in the facade. One word in Hebrew, one moment of shock, one tear, and it's over. Not just the mission, his life. This is the moment every Mossad agent trains for, the moment where everything hangs in the balance. What does he do? Does he react? Does he acknowledge the woman in the photo? Does he break? There's one rule, one sacred, unbreakable rule that every Mossad agent lives by. It's not what you think. It's not about weapons or tactics or even loyalty. It's simpler than that and infinitely harder. This rule has saved more lives than any weapon ever could. It's kept agents alive in the deepest, darkest corners of enemy territory. It's the difference between coming home and disappearing forever. So what is it? What's the one rule Mossad agents never, ever break? Stay with me. Because understanding this rule means understanding what it truly takes to survive in the shadows. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never think about Spies the same way again. Let's talk about Mossad. Not the Hollywood version, not the movie fantasy, the real thing. The Institute for Intelligence and Special Operations, known to the world simply as Mossad, is considered by many experts to be the most effective intelligence agency on the planet. Why? Because they operate where others wouldn't dare to go. Think about it. Israeli intelligence officers don't have the luxury of friendly territory. They're not gathering intel on allied nations with diplomatic cover and easy escape routes. No. Mossad agents operate in places where being Israeli means instant death. Tehran, Damascus, Beirut, Baghdad. These aren't just difficult postings. They're suicide missions if anything goes wrong. We're talking about agents who live for years, sometimes decades, in countries that would execute them on sight if their true identity was discovered. No backup 5 minutes away, no extraction team on standby, no safety net. Just you, your cover story, and your training. One mistake, one slip of the tongue, one moment where you forget who you're supposed to be, and you're done. The stakes couldn't be higher. These operations aren't about stealing documents or planting bugs. Mossad missions have prevented wars, stopped nuclear programs, eliminated threats that could have killed thousands. The intelligence they gather, the operations they run, they literally shape the course of history. And all of it depends on agents maintaining their cover in the most hostile environments imaginable. So when I tell you there's one rule these agents never break, understand. This isn't some guideline or suggestion. This isn't spy school advice that sounds cool but doesn't really matter. This is the rule, the foundation, the absolute bedrock of survival. Break this rule, and you're not just risking the mission, You're signing your own death warrant. And here's the thing. The rule isn't what most people would guess. So what do you think it is? What's the one rule Mossad agents never break? If you're like most people, you're probably thinking, never get caught. That makes sense, right? Don't get captured. Don't get exposed. Stay free. But here's the problem. That's the outcome, not the rule. That's what every spy wants. But it doesn't tell you how to achieve it. Maybe you're thinking, trust no one. Also a good guess in the world of espionage. Paranoia keeps you alive. Everyone could be a double agent. Everyone could be working for the other side. But Mossad agents do trust people. They have to. They build relationships, form connections, recruit sources. Total distrust would make their jobs impossible. Okay, what about this one? Complete the mission at all costs. Sounds very spy movie, very dramatic. Mission above everything, right? But actually, Mossad has aborted missions. They've pulled agents out. They've canceled operations when the risk became too high. The mission is important, but it's not everything. An agent who dies for a failed mission is just dead. Here's another popular one. Never leave evidence behind. Clean up. Disappear like you were never there. Sure, that's important tradecraft, but it's tactical, not philosophical. It's a technique, not a fundamental rule that governs everything you do. Some people think it's about weapons. Always be armed, always be ready to fight your way out. But Mossad agents often operate completely unarmed. A gun can blow your cover faster than anything else. A businessman from Syria doesn't carry a Glock. So no, it's none of these things. The real rule, the unbreakable rule, it cuts deeper. It's more fundamental. It's about identity itself, about who you are, or more precisely, who you pretend to be. Because in the world of Mossad operations, pretending isn't enough. You can't just act the part. You have to become it, completely, totally, without exception. Here it is. The one rule Mossad agents. Never break cover, no matter what. Not for a second, not for anyone, not under any circumstances. When you assume a cover identity, you don't just play that person, you are that person. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every single moment until the mission ends. This isn't method acting. This isn't pretending. This is complete transformation, your cover. Identity isn't a disguise you put on and take off. It's your reality. You think in that identity. You dream in that identity. You react instinctively as that person would react. Because the moment you break character, even for a fraction of a second, you're compromised. Let me be clear about what this means. If you're operating as a Muslim businessman from Damascus, you pray 5 times a day. You observe Ramadan, you know the Quran. If someone tests you at 3 in the morning, half asleep, you respond as the businessman, not as yourself. If you're tortured, if you're drugged, if you're caught off guard, the cover holds. It has to hold. This rule is drilled into every Mossad agent from day one. It's not advice. It's doctrine. It's the difference between operators who survive decades in deep cover and operators who get exposed and executed. The Israeli intelligence community learned this lesson the hard way, through failures, through losses, through agents who broke cover and paid the ultimate price. Your real name, your real family, your real beliefs, they all get buried, sometimes for years, and you can never, ever let them surface. Not when you're homesick, not when you're scared, not when everything in you is screaming to drop the act and just be yourself. The cover is everything. Break it and you're dead. To understand why this rule became sacred, we need to go back to the beginning. Mossad was founded in December 1949, just over a year after Israel declared independence. The new nation was surrounded by enemies, outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting for survival. Traditional military power wasn't enough. Israel needed intelligence, the kind of intelligence that could only come from deep inside enemy territory. The early operations were experimental, dangerous, often improvised. Agents were sent into Arab countries with cover stories and false papers. But the training was inconsistent. Some agents treated their cover identities casually, like costumes they could adjust or abandon when convenient. And some of those agents never came home. The turning point came in the early 1950s. During operations in Egypt and Iraq, several promising agents were caught because they broke cover. In small ways, a Hebrew phrase muttered under stress, a reaction to a Jewish holiday, a moment of homesickness that showed on their face. These tiny cracks led to suspicion, then investigation, then exposure. Some were imprisoned, some were executed, all because they couldn't maintain the cover completely. Mossad leadership realized something crucial. Partial commitment to a cover identity was worse than no cover at all. It created a false sense of security. It made agents careless. So they established what became known internally as the bayonet principle, named after a training instructor who famously said, "A bayonet is either all the way in or all the way out. There's no halfway. Your cover identity is the same. You're either completely committed or you're completely exposed." This wasn't just philosophy. It became the foundation of Mossad training. Agents would live as their cover identity for months before deployment, building the neural pathways, the automatic responses, the instinctive behaviors. By the time they entered enemy territory, the cover wasn't something they performed. It was something they lived, and that doctrine, forged in tragedy and refined through experience, became the unbreakable rule. Let me tell you about Eli Cohen, a man who embodied this rule so completely, he became a legend. In 1961, Eli Cohen, a Mossad agent, arrived in Argentina as Kamal Amin Thabit, a wealthy Syrian businessman living abroad. But Kamal wasn't just a name on a passport. Cohen became Kamal, totally, completely. He spent months in Argentina building Kamal's life, establishing business connections, befriending Syrian expatriates, living as a successful, charismatic Arab entrepreneur. He attended mosques. He celebrated Islamic holidays. He spoke with the accent and mannerisms of a man from Damascus every single day. He was Kamal. And in 1962, Kamal moved to Syria. Think about that for a moment. An Israeli Jew living in Syria, the heart of enemy territory. One slip, one mistake, and he's dead. But Cohen never broke cover. He became so convincing as Kamal that he befriended senior Syrian military officers, government officials, even members of the ruling Ba'ath party. They trusted him completely. Why? Because Kamal Amin Thabit was real to them. There was no performance to detect, no mask to see through. Cohen attended military briefings, visited strategic installations on the Golan Heights, even toured fortified positions along the Israeli border. Syrian officers bragged to their friend Kamal about defenses, troop movements, battle plans, and Kamal, always Kamal, listened, remembered. and transmitted everything back to Israel for 3 years. He maintained this cover without a single break. The intelligence Cohen provided was invaluable. It shaped Israeli military strategy and played a crucial role in the Six-Day War of 1967. But here is what matters for our story. Cohen's success wasn't about gadgets or tricks. It was about the rule. He never broke cover. Not once. At parties, in private moments, under pressure. He was always calm. That total commitment kept him alive and made him one of the most successful spies in history. The rule worked. So how do you actually do this? How do you become someone else so completely that even you start to believe it? The psychology behind deep cover operations is fascinating, and frankly, it's brutal. This isn't something you can fake. Mossad discovered early on that maintaining a cover identity requires rewiring your brain at a fundamental level. It starts with training, months of it, sometimes over a year. But this isn't classroom training. Agents don't just memorize facts about their cover identity, they live it. If your cover is a Lebanese merchant, you move to a training facility where everyone treats you as that merchant. You wake up as that person. You eat as that person, you think as that person. Your trainers will test you randomly, aggressively, trying to catch you off guard, trying to make you slip. This is method acting taken to an extreme that would terrify most actors. You're not performing a character, you're replacing yourself, your real memories, your real personality. They get buried under layers of constructed identity. Some psychologists call it controlled dissociation, creating a separate identity that can function independently. You build neural pathways, automatic responses, reflexive behaviors that match your cover. The mental discipline required is extraordinary. Imagine never relaxing, never letting your guard down. Even in your sleep, your dreams have to stay in character. If you talk in your sleep, you talk as your cover identity. If someone startles you awake, your first words, your first reactions, they all have to be authentic to the person you're pretending to be. And here's the hardest part. You have to maintain this for years. The psychological toll is immense. Agents report feeling disconnected from their real selves, struggling to remember who they actually are underneath the cover. Some agents finish their missions and need extensive psychological support to reclaim their original identity. But this is why the rule exists. Partial commitment doesn't work. Your brain can't switch back and forth. You're either all in or you'll get caught. Beat 7. The psychology behind it, 300 words. So how do you actually do this? How do you become someone else so completely that even you start to believe it? The psychology behind deep cover operations is fascinating, and frankly, it's brutal. This isn't something you can fake. Mossad discovered early on that maintaining a cover identity requires rewiring your brain at a fundamental level. It starts with training, months of it, sometimes over a year. But this isn't classroom training. Agents don't just memorize facts about their cover identity, they live it. If your cover is a Lebanese merchant, you move to a training facility where everyone treats you as that merchant. You wake up as that person, you eat as that person, you think as that person. Your trainers will test you randomly, aggressively, trying to catch you off guard, trying to make you slip. This is method acting taken to an extreme that would terrify most actors. You're not performing a character, you're replacing yourself, your real memories, your real personality. They get buried under layers of constructed identity. Some psychologists call it controlled dissociation, creating a separate identity that can function independently. You build neural pathways, automatic responses, reflexive behaviors that match your cover. The mental discipline required is extraordinary. Imagine never relaxing, never letting your guard down, even in your sleep. Your dreams have to stay in character. If you talk in your sleep, you talk as your cover identity. If someone startles you awake, your first words, your first reactions, they all have to be authentic to the person you're pretending to be. And here's the hardest part. You have to maintain this for years. The psychological toll is immense. Agents report feeling disconnected from their real selves, struggling to remember who they actually are underneath the cover. Some agents finish their missions and need extensive psychological support to reclaim their original identity. But this is why the rule exists. Partial commitment doesn't work. Your brain can't switch back and forth. You're either all in or you'll get caught. Beat 8. Real-world example number 2. The cost of breaking 300 words. Now let me tell you what happens when the rule gets broken. In the 1970s, a Mossad agent was operating in Lebanon under deep cover. For security reasons, we'll call him David, though that wasn't his real name or his cover name. David had been in place for 18 months, living as a French-educated businessman with Palestinian roots. His cover was solid. His mission was progressing. Everything was working. Then David made a mistake, a small one, barely noticeable. But in this world, small mistakes are fatal. He was at a cafe in Beirut when he heard Hebrew being spoken at a nearby table. Israeli tourists, reckless enough to visit Lebanon with forged passports. For just a moment, maybe to seconds, David's expression changed. He understood what they were saying, and it showed on his face. A flicker of recognition, a micro-expression of concern. A Lebanese intelligence officer happened to be watching. He noticed that tiny break in cover. That momentary lapse, it planted a seed of suspicion. The officer started investigating David's background. At first, everything checked out. The cover was professionally constructed. But now they were looking, really looking. With suspicion as their guide, over the next 3 weeks, they watched David more carefully. They tested him, staged situations to see how he'd react, and under that intense scrutiny, David made more mistakes, tiny ones, but they accumulated. The way he hesitated before answering questions about his childhood, the way he seemed to rehearse to perfect, the cover began to unravel. David was arrested, interrogated, and eventually exchanged in a prisoner swap, one of the lucky ones. But the mission was destroyed. Years of intelligence work lost. Local sources compromised and forced to flee. All because of 2 seconds. One moment where the mask slipped. This is why the rule exists. This is why it's unbreakable. In espionage, there's no such thing as a small mistake. You might be thinking, okay, that worked in the past. But what about now? What about today's world with smartphones, facial recognition, social media, and surveillance cameras on every corner? Surely the rule has changed. Surely technology has made deep cover obsolete. Actually, it's the opposite. The rule is more critical now than ever before. And it's also infinitely harder to maintain. Think about what a modern cover identity requires. It's not enough to have a fake passport and a memorized backstory anymore. Your cover identity needs a complete digital footprint. Social media accounts that go back years, with authentic posts, real interactions, genuine relationships, photos from childhood, school records, employment history. All of it has to exist online, and all of it has to be bulletproof. Mossad and other intelligence agencies now spend years building these digital identities before an agent ever sets foot in enemy territory. They create Facebook profiles, Instagram accounts, LinkedIn pages, all populated with years of content. They generate connections, friendships, work relationships. By the time the agent assumes the identity, that person has a life online that can withstand serious investigation. But here's where it gets even more challenging. Maintaining cover in the digital age means never breaking character online either. Every post, every comment, every photo has to match your cover identity perfectly. You can't slip up in a late night message. You can't accidentally like something that contradicts your cover story. You can't let your real self emerge even in the most private digital spaces. Because nothing is truly private anymore. Surveillance technology makes it worse. Facial recognition systems, gait analysis, voice recognition, they're all looking for inconsistencies. An agent has to physically become their cover identity, changing their walk, their posture, their mannerisms, and they have to maintain this performance under constant digital surveillance. The rule hasn't changed, never break cover, no matter what. But the challenge of following that rule has multiplied 1,000-fold in our modern interconnected world. Now let's step back from the world of espionage for a moment, because this rule, this principle of never breaking cover, it teaches us something profound about commitment, about discipline, about what it takes to succeed in any high-stakes situation. You don't have to be a spy for this to matter. Think about it. The core principle is complete commitment to a role or mission. No half measures, no partial effort, no switching back and forth between who you are and who you need to be. When Mossad agents commit to a cover identity, they go all in, totally, without reservation. And the level of commitment is what makes the impossible possible. This applies everywhere. Business leaders who succeed at the highest levels, they embody their role completely. They don't switch off being a leader when it's inconvenient. Athletes who reach the top of their sport, they live their identity as an athlete every single day. Their discipline doesn't take weekends off. Artists, scientists, anyone operating at the highest level of their field, they understand this instinctively. You can't achieve excellence through partial commitment. Consider your own life. How many times have you failed at something because you were only halfway in? Maybe you wanted to learn a new skill, but you only practiced when you felt like it. Maybe you tried to change a habit, but you made exceptions when it was hard. Maybe you committed to a goal, but you kept one foot in your old life, just in case. That's breaking cover, and just like in espionage, it's the fastest path to failure. The lesson is clear. Consistency isn't just helpful, it's everything. Half measures don't work in high stakes situations. You can't be to people at once. You can't live into reality simultaneously. You have to choose who you are, what you're committed to, and then you have to be that person completely, without breaks, without exceptions, without compromise. So let's go back to where we started. Tehran, 1986. That photograph on the table. The agent's sister staring up at him from a cafe in Tel Aviv. The Iranian intelligence officer watching, waiting for a reaction, waiting for the mask to crack. What does the agent do? He picks up the photograph, studies it carefully, then shrugs. In perfect Farsi, with a Syrian accent, he says, "Nice-looking woman, but I don't know her. Why are you showing me this?" His face shows nothing, no recognition, no emotion, just mild confusion. Because in that moment, he isn't pretending to be Ahmad the Syrian businessman. He is Ahmad, completely, totally, without question. His sister's face means nothing to Ahmad. so it means nothing to him. The Iranian officer watches for another moment, then takes the photograph back. It was a test, and the agent passed because he followed the rule. He never broke cover, not even for family, not even for love. The mission continued, the intelligence flowed, and eventually, he came home. That's the power of the rule. In the world of Mossad, in the shadowy realm of deep cover operations, this rule isn't negotiable. Never break cover, no matter what. It's kept agents alive in impossible situations. It's enabled operations that change history. It's the difference between success and catastrophe. You don't bend it. You don't adjust it for circumstances. You don't make exceptions. You either live the cover completely, or you don't live at all. And maybe that's the real lesson here. In any field, in any challenge, in any mission that truly matters, there's no room for half commitment. You can't be two things at once. Choose who you need to be. Then become that person fully, without reservation, without breaks. Because in the end, whether you aspire or not, partial commitment is just another way of failing. Go all in, or don't go at all.